a lot of people who want Common Core to simply go away, but it hasn't.
Some parents aren't waiting for the schools to get rid of the new standards. They've dumped the school system. Fox 10 News reporter Renee talks to a mom who's taken a drastic step. This is part 4 of our investigation into the Common Core controversy.
Even if some parents have thought about homeschooling their children since Common Core standards were implemented in Alabama, it's not really an option for most. Many parents work, or they may not feel their family has the discipline needed to homeschool. But one mother here in Mobile County says she's had enough. She pulled her 2 children out of public school this year.
You go ahead and get started on your time for learning. Kira.
The classroom for 9-year-old Kira and 10-year-old Hayden is just a short trip to the family living room in Sims. Gwen Wilkerson started homeschooling her children after she became fed up with Common Core.
And it got to the point where I couldn't figure it out on my own, and I had no idea how to help her. So 1/3 is a mushroom.
Wilkerson says her daughter was failing math even though she was coming up with the right answers in class.
The main turning point for me was when she got her progress report. And I was looking at it, and all of the answers were marked wrong. And I said, Kira, so you know how to add, you know how to add, you know how to subtract. And I was looking at the problems, and they was right. That was the right answer. Now, this is Hayden's room.
She has one of the Common Core problems she calls confusing posted in her son's bedroom.
Kira understood this way. That's the way she answered the problems. However, she was getting it marked wrong. You have to do it the Common Core way to get credit.
Wilkerson's children, who are in the 3rd and 4th grades, spend about 4 hours each day doing schoolwork.
So you need to write it just like that.
It's a shorter day than regular school, but she says they don't take off for the summer. We've been telling you about the Common Core math, but last semester Alabama implemented new English language arts standards. So how do Common Core standards differ when it comes to reading? In grades K through 5, material is balanced between literature and nonfiction. Beginning in 6th grade, students read more of what's called literary nonfiction, and that includes essays and journalism. Now the idea is to expose students to a wider range of information. Baldwin County Assistant Superintendent Hope Zena says the reading standards got off to a rough start.
Overall, countywide, those scores were lower than we would have liked. This year was not even a benchmark year.
Zena says the state is working out some glitches.
Math scores were much higher in the state, but we've had 2 full years of that. So to educators, that says we're teaching the standards and these students are succeeding. Those scores were much better. We need a little bit more time under our belt to teach these reading and language arts standards.
Zena is confident Common Core standards will help students in Alabama reach the same levels of achievement as students in other states.
Students in the state of Alabama are smart. Teachers work hard. We have smart students, and they deserve to be able to function on that national level.
I asked Wilkerson if she's worried her children might be left behind because they're not in traditional school.
I do worry about when they get older, if I'm going to be able to help them as much. But there's just so many support groups here. There's so many different homeschool co-ops. I know so many parents who homeschool that I have the support group. If I don't understand something, I have a list of people to call.
It doesn't appear that Common Core is going away. In fact, students will get another dose of Common Core when new science standards are implemented next year. Tomorrow, we'll take a look at what some see in the future for Common Core and how some states are now challenging it. Be sure to check out all of our stories this week on our website, fox10tv.com.
Alabama's oldest law enforcement agency in the state is under scrutiny and possibly headed for changes.
Yeah, in August, Fox 10 News investigative reporter Renee broke the story that some constables have criminal records and no training.
She's here in our studio now with an update on what's being done to correct what some consider a dangerous situation. Renee?
Well, Bob and Lenise, Larry Sheffield's arrest for murder in July put the office of constable in the spotlight. Now, I discovered a number of constables have arrest records here in Mobile County, and I told you about some of their convictions. Part of the problem could be that constables don't have to have any training, and there is no agency or commission that has oversight over these elected law enforcement officers. Any solution to the situation will have to come from Montgomery, and that's where we continue our investigation. Constables under scrutiny.
They are the only law enforcement representatives in Alabama.
The head of the Alabama Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission shook his head as he watched our first investigative story on constables in his Montgomery office recently.
Pleaded guilty to trafficking cocaine that you didn't actually traffic cocaine.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Alan Benefiel was surprised to learn Mario Yao was still an acting constable for Precinct 34, months after pleading guilty to trafficking cocaine.
If they're convicted felons, that's not who I want looking after my grandkids. I don't want them stopping my family. He's a convicted felon, particularly a drug trafficker.
But Yao made it clear in August he intended to finish out the remaining 2 years on his term despite the felony.
I've also been informed that if you do get a felony offense that you would have to be impeached, because it's not just like you can just be thrown out of office.
But that's exactly what Benefield says should happen.
If you are a law enforcement officer under our responsibility, you automatically vacate office. Alabama law prohibits any convicted felon from being a law enforcement officer, period.
But the constables are not under APOST supervision or oversight. Every other law enforcement officer and deputy in the state, with the exception of sheriffs, must be APOST certified. I asked Benefield about the voluntary training program started by the Mobile County Constables Association this year. According to an email from the association president, the training is taught by APOST certified instructors and is equivalent to APOST requirements.
So we did a quick search in our database of those individuals he said were APOST certified instructors. We don't have them. We don't know who they are. And the ones listed were not instructors.
I've tried to contact the president of the Mobile County Constables Association several times to set up an interview to talk about their training program. Now, the association sponsored its first training academy just a few months ago, and one of its students was Mario Yao. Yao told me he skipped the part of the course on firearms. His felony prohibits him from possessing one.
I don't carry one now because I'd just rather do with pepper spray. It's too much shooting that's going on now with law enforcement. It seems like that's the only thing they resort to.
He's an embarrassment to this office, and he doesn't need to be out there representing the office.
Longtime Constable Leo Bullock says voluntary training is not enough. He believes many constables oppose mandatory training because it requires a criminal background check.
The media's done a good job for me on exposing what some constables are. They're not all convicted felons, but they may have something in their background that eliminates them from holding this office.
For example, Yao was arrested for drug trafficking 4 months before he became constable. That pending case would have disqualified him from APOST training.
We will not accept an applicant who has a pending criminal charge or who is on probation for a charge.
Benefield says some misdemeanor convictions could also bar a candidate from training.
Domestic violence being one of those charges.
I think if we're going to keep the office viable, we need to put it to work properly and have set in place standards, training, and the Commission of Oversight.
Bullock says he's working on 3 bills for the next legislative session. One of the bills is similar to the one he tried to get through in 2012.
So I'm going to use the 2012 legislation that he introduced that helps establish that training commission or oversight to police the office as well as set the standards and training.
Bullock says the second bill will have constables elected by House districts instead of voting precincts. There are 88 precincts in Mobile County compared to only 10 House districts. The final bill will designate constables as the process servers for district court.
This will free up sheriff's deputies to tend to the criminal matters and improve response times for their department.
Alabama's next legislative session is March 2nd. Bullock says he hopes to have all of the local delegation on board before then.
I plan to make sure that during the holidays, Christmas holidays, I am able to personally visit with every representative here in Mobile County, as well as every senator, and have their signed-on support.
Bullock says without legislation to bring needed oversight and training to the constables, he sees only one other alternative.
If we don't modernize the office and get a commission to oversight, we need to get rid of it. It's dangerous.
Now, Bullock has already been in contact with some local lawmakers, and now that the midterm elections are over, he hopes to have someone signed on to sponsor those bills. And of course, our investigation is certainly not over, and I'll let you know whenever there are some new developments.
Okay, why is it that some counties have constables and others don't?
Well, there are 67 counties in Alabama, and only about 30 of them have constables. The others, including Baldwin County, did away with the position through legislation. Now, in the counties that do have them, there are supporters who believe the constables could be an asset to law enforcement if they had training and oversight.
That's the important thing.
Yes. For any politician, the road to office is paved with campaign promises. For then candidate Sandy Stimson, public safety was a top priority.
The citizens do not feel safe right now. They just feel like that the streets aren't safe and the homes aren't safe, doors being kicked in.
By his first week in office, Stimson had already made his pick for police chief. One of James Barber's first actions was to deal with a police scandal that led to the demotion of a captain and discipline of 3 officers.
In other words, the patrol guys were taking burglary reports, but the detectives were changing them.
Specifically to make the numbers look?
Make the numbers look lower.
That move led to a drastic increase in crime statistics.
Then you see what happens, our crime jumps back up. But it's not that there was more crime, it was just that now we're actually reporting crime.
The chief says crime statistics are improving, but he still faces a challenge of holding on to officers who say they are underpaid.
So we're losing approximately a precinct a year.
But both the chief and Stimson believe the city is on track to the mayor's original goal for 2020.
There's 3 things that you've got to do if we're going to be the safest city in America, and that's first off that you've got to have crime prevention, then you've got to have the enforcement, but you also have to have rehabilitation. And so some of all of that is going on. I would say that we're not as far along in the process when it comes to rehabilitation as a community, but that's just not something the mayor's office alone does.
Stimson says he hasn't forgot his campaign promises to improve parks and clean up the city.
Going back in hindsight being 2020, I wish we had jumped on the alternative that we came up with on the grass cutting earlier, because it really got out of hand. We were not able to keep up with it with the city personnel, but the grass cutting contracts, by the time we got to August, we were kind of in sync with what needed to be done. But I think next year that we'll be ahead of it, and I think that the citizens will see a big difference in the maintenance of the ditches.
But one of Stimson's goals was not met.
Regarding the penny sales tax increase, it rolls off in 2015. But when it rolls off, we will not do anything to put it back on.
Stimson vetoed a council vote to extend the 1% sales tax for 3 years instead of only 2 months as he had recommended. But that political fight was lost when the council voted to override the veto.
I'm convinced that the city cannot do without this revenue.
City Council member Fred Richardson says he'd like to see better communication between the 9th and 10th floors at Government Plaza.
I think he has people ready working for him, are determined to show this council that we have the power. It is not about who has the power. It's about providing the greatest level of service we can provide for the citizens that we represent.
Some other council members echo that concern.
Council members continuously ask for information about projects that are coming up and the priorities. We would like to learn more about how those priorities are put in place. We need to know what projects are coming so that there are not so many questions when it does get to the council's agenda.
Having the dialogue, putting in the grunt work behind the agenda items to build the cohesiveness and to build the support, I think, are areas where I realize there are weaknesses, and I'm hopeful as we move forward, we will see continued progress.
Mayor Stimson believes both floors can work toward better communication.
You've got to be able to have, kind of frank conversations with each other in such a way that it's done to a degree in confidence until a decision is made.
During the campaign, Stimson promised transparency for his administration. He announced an open-door policy and even removed the door from his office.
All right, have that door and we can take it the other way.
So how's that promise going? This is the 10th floor where Mayor Stimson's office is located here in Government Plaza. Now the mayor's open door is behind this door, which is always locked. The mayor's chief of staff says most of the locks from the previous administration have been removed.
We're trying to get clear doors on that for, the transparency purposes.
Mayor Stimson says removing the door was symbolic of transparency in his office.
We have been very open to every request from the media.
I think he maybe thought when I get down there, I can sit up at my desk, say, I got Willie Earl out there. I don't know who he is, but bring him on in. Not gonna happen. Willie will not get in the office. I can tell you right now. Willie will not make it in the office.
There are some times when a citizen may show up, that I'm not available.
State Superintendent Dr. Tommy Bice was here in Dothan tonight as part of his 12-stop tour to talk about the future of education in Alabama. But what we wanted to know is what's going to happen concerning these allegations we've been reporting on from a former Mobile County school principal. And I was able to get some answers from Dr. Bice shortly before his speech. A number of people came to the Dothan High School auditorium tonight to learn about the future of public education in Alabama. We caught up with Dr. Tommy Bice in the hallway about 30 minutes before the program was scheduled to begin. Bice acknowledged receiving an email from former J.E. Turner Elementary principal Missy Nolan and confirmed an investigation is underway.
We gave it to our legal staff to continue their investigation.
Do you know about how long that might take and what that investigation might involve?
Sure don't.
We ask how widespread these kinds of allegations are in Mobile County and the rest of the state.
I have no reason to think that it's widespread at all. This is an incident that's been reported to us, and we'll look into it.
Do you think it's pretty isolated, or?
I have no idea. We're looking into this isolated situation, yes.
We also received a short written statement from Mobile County School Superintendent Dr. Martha Peak that says, we investigated these allegations when they were reported to us during the past school year, just as we investigate any allegations made regarding possible grading irregularities. We have completed the investigation. In her letter to Dr. Bice, Nolan did not give any specifics of the alleged cheating, but wrote that they, quote, include but are not limited to cheating on standardized and weekly assessments, demonstrating unprofessional behavior towards students and administrators, and using inappropriate strategies for disciplining students. The Mobile County School Superintendent in her statement says the internal investigation is complete, but that statement does not say what the outcome of that investigation was. However, we do plan to stay on top of what ultimately happens with this state investigation. In Dothan, I'm Renee Dowles, Fox 10 News.